In the highlands of Ethiopia, the village of Adama was famous. Its women were known for their beauty, kindness, and strength. People from far away came to see the women of Adama, and many men dreamed of marrying them. One of these beautiful women was Selam, a girl who everyone admired for her grace and kindness. Selam lived with her brother Abel and their parents. They were a small, close-knit family. Their parents loved them very much and always made sure they had everything they needed. Life in Adama was peaceful, with the birds singing and the fields green with crops. Everyone loved Selam, not just for her beauty but also for her kindness and the way she helped others. One day, sadness struck the peaceful village of Adama. Selam and Abel's parents, who loved them dearly, suddenly passed away. The siblings were devastated. Without their parents, their home became silent and lonely. Selam and Abel were left alone to take care of each other. They promised to stay strong, no matter how difficult life became. Now, Selam had to take care of the home, while Abel worked in the fields. Each day, Selam would go to the market to sell fruits and vegetables, while Abel worked for farmers, helping with the crops. Even though their life became harder, their bond as siblings grew stronger. They depended on each other for everything. As time went by, Selam turned 25. Most of the girls in the village got married when they were 18, but Selam had not married yet. Her relatives started to worry and would often visit her, saying, "Selam, why haven't you found a husband? You are getting older." Selam would smile politely and say, "I'm not in a hurry. I want to marry the right man." But the pressure from her family and the villagers kept growing. Even the villagers started talking about Selam's situation. Whenever she walked through the market, people would ask, "Selam, when will we hear the wedding drums for you?" This made Selam feel uneasy. She didn't want to rush into a marriage just to stop the whispers. One day, Selam met a man named Kadir. He was a kind and hard-working man who had always admired her from a distance. Kadir was patient and treated Selam with respect. Over time, they started spending more time together, and Selam began to like him. After some thought, she decided that Kadir was the man she wanted to marry. Selam and Kadir's wedding was a grand celebration. The whole village of Adama gathered to celebrate. There was music, dancing, and laughter. Everyone was happy for Selam, especially her brother Abel, who had always wanted to see her happy. Selam moved into Kadir's house, and was determined to be a good wife. In her new home, Selam worked hard to make Kadir's family happy. Every morning, she woke up early to fetch water, prepare food, and clean the house. She did everything she could to be the perfect wife. Kadir and his family were pleased with her hard work, and for a while, everything seemed perfect. After a year of marriage, Kadir's mother began to worry. "Selam," she said, "you've been married for a year now. Why haven't you given us a child yet?" Selam felt a pang of sadness in her heart. She wanted to have children, but nothing seemed to be happening. As time passed, Kadir's family became more anxious. They wanted grandchildren and started to look at Selam with suspicion. Kadir's mother would often sigh and shake her head, wondering if something was wrong with Selam. This made Selam feel even more pressure to have a child. One day, when Selam was away at the market, Kadir's mother came up with a secret plan. She brought a young woman into their home and told Kadir, "You must be with this woman. We need to know if the problem is with you or Selam." Kadir was shocked, but he didn't want to disobey his mother. When Selam found out what had happened, she was heartbroken. She couldn't believe that Kadir had been with another woman, even if it was to please his mother. Selam felt ashamed and lost. With a heavy heart, she packed her things and returned to Abel's house. Selam returned to her brother Abel's house, feeling like a failure. She had worked so hard to be a good wife, but now she was alone again. Abel welcomed her back with open arms, but Selam couldn't shake the sadness that filled her heart. The villagers whispered behind her back, saying, "Poor Selam, she couldn't give Kadir a child." For months, Selam stayed with her brother, feeling hopeless. But her relatives didn't give up on her. They visited her often, saying, "Selam, you are still young and beautiful. Don't lose hope. You should try to marry again." At first, Selam didn't want to listen, but over time, their words gave her a little hope. After some time, Selam met a man named Baker from a neighboring village. He was kind and patient, just like Kadir had been. Selam hesitated at first, afraid of being hurt again. But Baker was understanding and told her that he didn't mind waiting. Slowly, Selam began to trust him. Selam and Baker had a small, simple wedding. There was no big celebration like before, but Selam didn't mind. She just wanted to find happiness again. After the wedding, Selam moved to Baker's village, hoping that this time things would be different. For the first few months, everything was peaceful. Baker's family treated Selam well, and she worked hard to make them happy. But after a year of marriage, the same worry returned. There was still no child, and Baker's family began to question why. Baker was patient, but as time passed, he too began to worry. One night, he sat down with Selam and said, "I'm sorry, Selam, but I need children to carry on my family name. If you cannot give me children, I must find someone who can." Once again, Selam was sent away, her heart even more broken than before. Desperate for answers, Selam began to visit healers, hoping they could help her. She traveled to many different villages, meeting with wise men and women who promised her that they could help her have a child. But no matter what they did, nothing changed. Selam felt more lost with each passing day. One day, someone told Selam about a wise old woman who lived deep in the forest. People said this woman had special powers and could see things that others couldn't. Selam decided to visit her, hoping that she might finally have the answers Selam was searching for. When Selam arrived at the wise woman's hut, she told her everything that had happened. The wise woman listened carefully and then said, "Your parents placed a spell on your womb to protect you. They were afraid that because of your beauty, you might fall into trouble before marriage." The wise woman continued, "Your parents locked your womb to keep you safe. This is why you have not been able to have children." Selam's eyes widened in shock. "Is there a way to unlock it?" she asked. The wise woman nodded, but what she said next made Selam feel even more confused. "To unlock your womb," the wise woman said, "you must share blood with a close relative. Only then will the spell be broken." Selam was horrified. "What do you mean?" she asked. The wise woman explained that the only way to break the spell was to be with her brother, Abel. Selam left the wise woman's hut feeling more confused than ever. How could she ask her brother to do such a thing? It was wrong, and the thought of it made her feel sick. But at the same time, she wanted a child so badly. She didn't know what to do. For weeks, Selam struggled with the choice. The desire to have a child was so strong that it began to cloud her judgment. One night, she sat down with Abel and told him everything the wise woman had said. Abel was shocked and horrified. "I cannot do this," he said firmly. Word of Selam's desperation soon spread through the village. People began to whisper behind her back, saying, "Did you hear what Selam wants to do? She is willing to do anything for a child." The villagers pitied her, but they also judged her. Selam felt more alone than ever. Unable to bear the shame and confusion, Abel decided to leave the village. He couldn't stay in Adama after what had happened. He told Selam goodbye and left without looking back. Selam watched her brother disappear into the distance, feeling like she had lost the only family she had left. Now truly alone, Selam fell into a deep sadness. She no longer went to the market or visited her friends. She stayed inside Abel's empty house, thinking about everything that had happened. The villagers continued to whisper, and Selam felt like an outsider in her own home. After many months of loneliness, Selam made a decision. She would leave Adama and move to the city, where no one knew her past. She packed her things and left the village without saying goodbye to anyone. Help her have a child. But no matter what they did, nothing changed. Selam felt more lost with each passing day. One day, someone told Selam about a wise old woman who lived deep in the forest. People said this woman had special powers and could see things that others couldn't. Selam decided to visit her, hoping that she might finally have the answers Selam was searching for. When Selam arrived at the wise woman's hut, she told her everything that had happened. The wise woman listened carefully and then said, "Your parents placed a spell on your womb to protect you. They were afraid that because of your beauty, you might fall into trouble before marriage." The wise woman continued, "Your parents locked your womb to keep you safe. This is why you have not been able to have children." Selam's eyes widened in shock. "Is there a way to unlock it?" she asked. The wise woman nodded, but what she said next made Selam feel even more confused. "To unlock your womb," The wise woman said, "You must share blood with a close relative. Only then will the spell be broken." Selam was horrified. "What do you mean?" she asked. The wise woman explained that the only way to break the spell was to be with her brother, Abel. Selam left the wise woman's hut feeling more confused than ever. How could she ask her brother to do such a thing? It was wrong, and the thought of it made her feel sick. But at the same time, she wanted a child so badly. She didn't know what to do. For weeks, Selam struggled with the choice. The desire to have a child was so strong that it began to cloud her judgment. One night, she sat down with Abel and told him everything the wise woman had said. Abel was shocked and horrified. "I cannot do this," he said firmly. Word of Selam's desperation soon spread through the village. People began to whisper behind her back, saying, "Did you hear what Selam wants to do? She is willing to do anything for a child." The villagers pitied her, but they also judged her. Selam felt more alone than ever. Unable to bear the shame and confusion, Abel decided to leave the village. He couldn't stay in Adama after what had happened. He told Selam goodbye and left without looking back. Selam watched her brother disappear into the distance, feeling like she had lost the only family she had left. Now truly alone, Selam fell into a deep sadness. She no longer went to the market or visited her friends. She stayed inside Abel's empty house, thinking about everything that had happened. The villagers continued to whisper, and Selam felt like an outsider in her own home. After many months of loneliness, Selam made a decision. She would leave Adama and move to the city, where no one knew her past. She packed her things and left the village without saying goodbye to anyone. The first few days after bringing Fika, Belen, and Tadio's home were challenging. The children were quiet and hesitant at first, unsure of their new surroundings. They weren't used to having a home, and Selam could sense their nervousness. Belen clung to Selam, always watching her closely, while Fika stayed in his room, withdrawn and distant. Tadios, on the other hand, ran through the house with excitement, playing with anything he could find, his laughter filling the rooms. But even with Tadios' joy, Selam knew it would take time for the children to feel truly safe and at home. Selam and Gatu quickly learned that parenting was not as easy as they had imagined. Fika was especially difficult to reach. He was quiet and rarely spoke, even when they tried to engage him in conversation. Belen had trouble sleeping, waking up in the middle of the night with nightmares. Tadios, while cheerful, often refused to listen to instructions, and was prone to tantrums. Selam felt overwhelmed. She didn't know if she was doing enough, or if she was making mistakes. But Gatu remained patient. "They've been through a lot," he reminded her. "We need to give them time." One evening, after many weeks of silence, Fika finally opened up to Selam. They were sitting together on the porch, watching the sunset. Fika had been unusually quiet that day, and Selam could tell something was on his mind. "Do you miss your village?" she asked gently. Fika nodded but didn't speak. After a long pause, he whispered, "I don't know where my mother is." Selam's heart broke for him. She knew what it was like to lose family, to feel abandoned. She put her arm around him and said softly, "I don't know either, Fika. But you're not alone anymore. You have us now, and we're your family." As the months went by, the children slowly began to trust Selam and Gatu. Tadios continued to be a ball of energy, running through the house and making everyone laugh with his antics. Belen, who had been shy at first, blossomed under Selam's care, following her around the kitchen, eager to learn how to cook traditional Ethiopian meals. Fika still struggled, but little by little, he began to let his guard down. He started talking more, asking questions about the world, about Addis Ababa, and about Selam's own childhood. Though he was still grieving, he found comfort in the fact that he was no longer alone. One day, as Selam sat with Fika, Belen, and Tadios, she told them stories from her own childhood in the village. She spoke about the days when life was simple and peaceful, when she and her brother Abasai would play in the fields and climb trees. She told them about her parents, about how they loved her and how much she missed them. As she spoke, she realized how far she had come. The pain of the past was still there, but it no longer controlled her. She had found a new purpose in life, a purpose she hadn't expected but one that filled her heart with joy. Selam knew that no matter how happy her life had become, she still needed to face the memories that haunted her. She had buried so many painful emotions, especially about her failed marriages and the stigma she had carried for so long. One afternoon, she sat with Gatu and told him everything, about the pressure to marry, the heartbreak of being rejected for not having children, and the shame she had felt for so many years. Gatu listened quietly, holding her hand as she spoke. When she finished, he said, "Selam, you are not defined by your past. Look at what you've built. Look at the love you've created." One day, Selam received a surprise visit from someone she hadn't seen in years, her old friend Mulu from a village. Mulu had heard about Selam's new life in Addis Ababa and came to see her. They spent hours talking, reminiscing about their childhood and catching up on all that had happened. Mulu was amazed by how much Selam had changed. "You've come so far," she said. "I always knew you were strong, but I didn't realize just how strong." Selam smiled. "I didn't realize it either, but I've learned that sometimes strength comes from the people we love." As the years passed, Selam and Gatu's family continued to grow, not just with more children, but with love, laughter, and joy. Every year, they celebrated Meskel, the Ethiopian festival of the finding of the true cross, together as a family. The children looked forward to it, dressing in their best clothes, dancing around the bonfire, and eating special foods. Selam loved seeing the joy on their faces. It reminded her that family wasn't about blood, it was about love, commitment, and the bonds they had built together. One evening, Belen asked Selam a question that caught her off guard. "Will I ever meet my real parents?" she asked softly. Selam paused, unsure of how to answer. She didn't want to give Belen false hope, but she also knew how important it was to be honest. "I don't know, Belen," she said gently. "But whether you find them or not, you'll always have a family with us. We'll always love you." Belen nodded, but Selam could see the sadness in her eyes. She hugged her tightly, knowing that some questions didn't have easy answers. Raising children wasn't without its difficulties. As Fika, Belen, and Tadios grew older, they each faced their own challenges. Fika struggled in school, often feeling out of place among the other children. Belen became more curious about her past, asking difficult questions about her birth parents. Tadios, full of energy and mischief, often got into trouble at school. Selam and Gatu worked hard to guide them through these challenges, sometimes feeling overwhelmed but always staying united in their love for their children. As Fika entered his teenage years, his struggles became more pronounced. He felt disconnected from his peers and often lashed out in frustration. Selam tried her best to understand him, but there were times when she didn't know what to do. One evening, after a particularly difficult day, Fika stormed out of the house, leaving Selam worried and heartbroken. Gatu found him sitting alone by the river, and they sat together in silence for a while before Fika finally opened up. "I don't know who I am," he said quietly. "I feel like I don't belong anywhere." Gatu placed a hand on Fika's shoulder. "You belong with us," he said gently. "You are part of this family, and nothing will ever change that." Despite the challenges they faced, Selam and Gatu never gave up on their children. They knew that healing would take time, but they were committed to helping Fika, Belen, and Tadios navigate their way through life. Fika began attending counseling sessions, where he learned to express his feelings in a healthy way. Belen continued to explore her identity, but she found comfort in the knowledge that she had a family who loved her. Tadios, always the energetic one, eventually learned to channel his energy into sports, excelling in soccer. Through all the ups and downs, Selam and Gatu's family grew stronger. They learned that family wasn't about perfection. It was about love, forgiveness, and the willingness to stay together, no matter what. Selam looked at her children, her beautiful, strong, resilient children, and realized that they had given her something she had never expected, a second chance at happiness. They had taught her that love was not about the absence of pain, but about the courage to face it together. As Selam stood on the porch of her home, watching Fika, Belen, and Tadios play in the yard, she felt a sense of peace wash over her. Her heart, once filled with sorrow and regret, was now full of love and hope. She had found her purpose, not in the life she had once imagined, but in the life she had built. It wasn't perfect, and it wasn't easy, but it was hers.